This is over 200 Arc Raiders tips, tricks, and secrets. Let's go. If you fall or roll off ledges that are high up, you will take fall damage. However, if you first completely deplete your stamina and perform a slow roll off the edge, you will negate the fall damage, as the animation from the slow roll allows your character's fall status to start later in the drop. This trick can save your life when you need to get down from high places and want to take no damage or less damage. Now, we all know that you can reload your ammo and it'll take it from your backpack. However, what you might not know is that you can reload ammo from your safe pocket. This is especially useful if you're going in with expensive ammo such as energy or explosive, which runs between 15 to 18k a stack. Pair this with a backpack that has 3 safe pockets and you're reducing your overall risk of loss by quite a bit. The workshop section is your home base. This is where your material gathering rooster named Scrappy lives and where you craft gear, weapons, consumables, and more. Be sure to craft and upgrade every workbench in the workshop as often and as fast as possible, as it'll make your raider life much easier. This may be a simple tip, but sometimes people don't prioritize it. Smoke grenades obviously help you versus enemy raiders, but they will also help you versus the Arc. Keep these handy, as they will save your life when you get caught in the open against Arc enemy or raiders, especially when it's things like ROCKTEERs, leapers, or any of the big Arc that become a huge threat in open areas. You can climb on top of Arc enemies if you get close enough. You can use things like SNAPHOOKs or terrain near you to get on top of them, and you can cause serious damage with your melee weapon or even things like mines and grenades. But be careful, if you fall from too far, you might meet your end. You can find these boxes called field crates lying around and carry them to a field depot to open for a variety of loot. You can spot field depots when you are nearby via zooming in your map, or use online map resources like metaforge.app. These can be especially useful if you're on a free kit and you need extra resources or sometimes even an extra weapon. Most raids start at 30 minutes and you can spawn early or late. If you spawn early, then most raiders should be on the edges of the map. However, if you spawn late, raiders could be anywhere, so be careful when moving around. It's also worth noting that late spawns tend to feel underwhelming if you're new to the game, because it feels like all the loot is gone. However, if you look around, you'll usually see that raiders haven't picked everything. You can interact with containers that have already been opened and looted. Doing so will grant you free, easy experience. This is most useful when you spawn into a raid late and several containers have already been opened. This is fast experience you should consider grabbing if you want to level up quickly. You can use defibrillators to revive teammates, but you can also use it to revive enemy raiders. This can sometimes be an effective way to create a new ally or friend. I advise taking a defib in your safe pocket when playing solo, just in case you need to save a life. Pause. I honestly really hate to ask this kind of stuff. I always find it super cringe, but this video took me months to make, collecting over 200 clips with hundreds of hours of gameplay, all edited by hand. If you found even one tip helpful in this video so far, make sure to hit that subscribe, because it'll really help me out. Anyways, let's get back into the next tips. You can holster your weapon by holding Y or triangle on controller or pressing H on keyboard. This allows you to move much faster, which is very useful for traversing the map quickly or rotating during a PvP fight. You can even use this to play chicken with Arc and dodge a few of their shots. The traders provide you with quests to progress in the game, but they are also vendors that will sell you gear, weapons, consumables, and more. The more you progress your quests, the more items will be unlocked via the vendors, such as the HULLCRACKER, which you can use to demolish large Arc enemies for useful loot and rare items. You can break down items into smaller parts that are oftentimes more stackable. This is very useful for clearing up inventory space and gathering smaller materials that you may need for crafting low and mid-tier items. The more you recycle, the more you'll learn which parts are more useful to keep or to sell. You can melee both vertically and horizontally. To do this, you're going to need to press left trigger on controller or right click on keyboard for vertical swings, or press right trigger on controller or left click on keyboard for horizontal swings. This can be especially useful when trying to break cameras in high places when combined with a jump. Blueprints are found in raid when looting through various containers throughout the world, or given as a reward for completing quests or trials. Once you receive a blueprint or extract with it successfully, you can select that blueprint and press learn and consume, giving you the ability to craft the item, weapon, or gadget as much as you'd like. You can also view all blueprints by navigating to your workshop and pressing R on the keyboard or Y/triangle on a controller. My advice is when you find these in raid, I would strongly suggest you put them in your safe pocket. Safe pockets are where you can safely store items that you keep upon death. Use these slots for high valuables, blueprints, and keys. You can also increase the size of your safe pocket with higher tier augments, which is especially useful for big loot runs. When a raider is downed, it can take quite a few bullets to finish them, which means you can waste ammo and leave yourself vulnerable during PvP. So instead, you can walk over and hold X or square on controller or press E on keyboard to finish them with a punch. Keep in mind though, when you do this, you are completely vulnerable. Arc Raiders has a lot of items in the game that are really important to keep, so with that said, it's very important that you upgrade your stash in Arc Raiders. If you navigate to the top, you can see an upgrade section which will allow you to upgrade. The first upgrade is 5,000 coins and it increases the more you upgrade, maxing out at about 200k coins for the last and final upgrade. Maxing out your stash should be one of the first goals you have in Arc Raiders when spending your coins. Most Arc you eliminate in the game will drop something called Arc Power Cells, and they can be used to restore your shields for a small amount, so don't throw them away. They are also used to craft green shield rechargers, which can even be done in raid if you have the points spec'd into the proper survival tree perk called in-round crafting. This isn't obvious to most new players as other medication items automatically go to the quick slot, except the Arc Power Cells do not, so you have to bring them there manually. When initiating a slide, you use a small amount of stamina. Afterwards, during the slide, you regenerate stamina, and it is extremely fast in compared to running down a hill. So, you need to use this whenever you have the opportunity, as it's going to allow you to traverse faster and retain a lot more stamina while moving around the map. Free loadouts are a wonderful feature in Arc Raiders. They give you a random loadout. While random, they will always include at least some health and shield healing items. Combine the free loadout with the in-round crafting perk and you'll be set to explore topside carefree as often as you want. This gives new players a great way to play stress-free. Though keep in mind, there are only a limited amount of items and weapons that can come from your free kit by default. Scrappy is your trusty rooster that gathers useful materials for you between each raid. He can level up if you give him the right items, so be sure to track these ASAP. These materials at first might seem like nothing, but the more you become familiar with the game, the more value you will see in these small materials, especially when combined with the refiner, which will allow you to upgrade them to even better materials. Do not underestimate the use of adrenaline shots. These are very cheap to craft and can help you rotate during a fight, or even more importantly, make it to that extraction point before the timer ends, in many cases saving your life. My advice would be to bring at least 3 to 5 of these every single raid. Pay close attention to when you are given a quest, to the dialogue, the picture, and the quest text. These will often provide you more clues on how to complete your quest versus just reading the quest objective. If you don't, when you load into your raids, some of these quests might seem a bit obscure and difficult to solve, so pay close attention. You can extract with enemy raiders, so if you made an ally along your adventure, feel free to leave together safely. Alternatively, you can also allow knocked out raiders to crawl in and escape with you to save a life. Each main extraction point has a timer, excluding raider hatches. These are important to take note of when you load in so you can better plan your escape route, because once the timer is up, the extraction point closes. Keep in mind you have 2 minutes to get into the extraction and press the switch once it has opened, unless the extraction point timer is about to expire. If so, you need to enter before that. The lift has 4 openings and a small cart in the middle for cover. Once activated, it will sound an alarm, flash lights, and a speaking intercom. Be aware as this alerts every nearby enemy raider and arc. The metro station also has 4 openings but has no cover in the middle, and players can come from the other side of the railway, so be careful when extracting using these options. The air shaft extraction has a zipline in the center and spiral staircases on each side that wrap around. Below, it has 2 terminals like all other extraction points. When you call the extraction, the center will open up, which will allow you to fall in safely, though it's not necessary. The Raider Hatch is the fastest and safest extraction, but it requires a key. These can be purchased for a fair price or found in various loot containers, and if you level up, you can even craft them at your workshop. Once you've progressed a bit, I would always take a Raider Hatch key in your safe pocket as long as it's not during the map events where hatches are closed. Always keeping a hatch key gives you far more extraction opportunities to get out when needed and helps avoid the notorious extraction campers. Raider hatches will automatically close after 10 to 20 seconds, so make sure you wait for your team to open it or they might get left behind. When a raider is knocked out, a red flare shoots up into the sky. If there is something above the player such as a ceiling, the flare will not pass through. Use red flares as a way to find enemy raiders or avoid them altogether. Fake raider flares can be found or crafted and used as a means to trick other raiders into an ambush, so be careful. Not every raider flare you see out there is a real one, and experienced raiders may use this to trick you and eliminate you. When you break a raider's shield, you will hear an electrical explosion, followed by an explosion of sparks on the raider. These sound cues and visual cues are crucial to your victory in PvP, so learn them carefully. And if you're on a team, make the correct callouts. When you are down but not out, it is not always over. You can crawl to an extraction point and interact with them safely to get back home, so never give up. And with the looting survival augment, you can even crawl for hundreds of meters and make it back to an extraction point. You can track various recipes such as ammunition, weapons, or even workshop benches. This will mark the items needed for each tracked recipe with an eye, making it much easier to manage loot both on topside and in your stash. You can even view your tracked recipes by opening your map, scrolling to the right, or opening your stash and navigating to your logbook. Make sure to mark everything that's important to you, as that makes looting easier and faster. Nature baskets are a great source of fruit which is needed to level up your rooster. These are only found when a lush bloom event or cold snap event is active on a map, and the most common locations for nature baskets are typically near small structures in nature-related areas. Not only are they a great source of fruit needed to level your rooster, but they are also a great source of coins if you need to make some money. At first, door blockers seemed quite niche, but these can be extremely good when you are planning to loot a locked location, as it will buy you time if enemy raiders want to follow in behind you. Alternatively, if you and your teammates get in a fight and your teammates get knocked, you can use door blockers to buy yourself time to revive your teammates as well. They're cheap, so consider carrying some of them into your raids. Choose a field of view setting that works for you. Higher FOV equals more visual information. However, lower FOV equals more precision because your targets are larger, which is very useful if you play far away on a TV. To do this, go to Settings, Graphics, and change the FOV here. My preference is a maximum of 80, but test and see what works best for you and your setup. There really is no right or wrong answer. You can shoulder swap by pressing right stick on controller or X on keyboard. This is a key combat mechanic in third-person shooters, so get comfortable using it constantly. A player that uses shoulder swap consistently and comfortably is typically going to be able to outpeak and outplay other enemy raiders that do not. At first it might feel awkward, but with a little bit of practice, you'll get used to it. You will receive the HULLCRACKER and explosive ammo blueprint through completing quests. This is the premium weapon for taking down large arc. Use this if you plan to take out the queen or the matriarch during their respective events. And if you're doing trials and you're planning to take down large arc like leapers, bombardiers, bastions, etc., you might want to consider taking a HULLCRACKER during those situations as well, as it's going to be the fastest way for you to eliminate those arc. You can manually inspect items from your stash while in Speranza. This can be useful when you need more information on an item, such as what it's used to craft, where it can be found, and what it recycles into, all in one quick menu. You can split your item stacks in arc raiders. To do this on Xbox, press A to select the item, then X to split. On PlayStation, press X to select the item, then square to split. And on PC, you hold left alt, select the item, then double click or press shift or drag to split the stack. Splitting stacks is super useful if you do not want to bring all of a stack of a particular item like meds or grenades into a raid, or if you're trying to split them to share them with a friend or a fellow teammate. If you press left bumper on controller or Q on PC, you can quickly cycle through consumables rather than pulling up the item wheel. This can be super useful if you're running from enemy raiders or arc and you don't want to obstruct your view, and at the same time you want to cycle through those consumables as quickly as possible. If you hold sprint when on a ladder, you will slide down quickly. Alternatively, if you hold sprint when climbing up a ladder, you will actually climb faster. But be aware, using it to climb faster does use stamina. When breaching anything, it emits a loud metal sound that will alert nearby enemy raiders and arc, so think before looting. You can also invest in certain perks such as gentle pressure to reduce the sound made while breaching. Breaching is something you do very often in Arc Raiders, so just be careful when doing so. Make sure you scroll down when looting a player with a large augment, otherwise you may miss a ton of valuable items. This might seem like a small tip, but I've seen so many new players ignore this and leave behind expensive loot. And sometimes that could be the last bombardier cell, ROCKTEER driver, or even if you're lucky, a nice blueprint. If possible, always pay attention to your stamina meter and make sure that it never hits 0. Leaving just a smidge of stamina bar will allow you to roll one time when in a dangerous situation. This could be the difference between life or death within Arc Raiders. There are some weapons that have the ability to reload cancel due to their nature of bullet loading. These include things like the Rattler, the Anvil, and even the Il Toro. Just press the fire button during the reload to cancel. The colors on the map indicate loot value. This means that unmarked areas have low loot value, yellow have medium loot value, and red has high loot value. This means that red and yellow areas have better loot on average compared to unmarked. But that does not mean you can't still find rare loot in unmarked areas. Search everything because you never know where that rare blueprint you need may be found. Extraction games reward timing, especially Arc Raiders and its Raider Flare mechanic. Joining a fight late means weaker enemies and free loot. On the flip side, you should also be aware that you and your team are always susceptible to being the target of a third party, so act accordingly and prepare for the worst by rotating, hiding, and healing immediately after a fight. You can ping in Arc Raiders by pressing right bumper on the controller or scroll wheel click on mouse, but you can also hold the ping button to expand it and use detailed callouts. This is especially useful if you cannot use your microphone. You can emote in Arc Raiders by holding D-pad up on controller or G on keyboard. You can use this to communicate with enemy raiders and even team up. The don't shoot emote is the most commonly used to show a truce to enemy raiders, but be aware that some will use this maliciously as bait, so always proceed with caution. You can also hold left bumper and press D-pad down on controller to talk exclusively to your team. On keyboard, this is Z. Using these options, especially in solo, can help you with building alliances with random friendly enemy raiders. Most silent raiders are shot on sight because you don't know their intentions or whether you can trust them. So using your microphone will greatly increase your chances of teaming up with raiders, especially in solos. So if you have one and you're comfortable with it, I strongly advise you use it. When you open your map, the legend will display on the right side. This is especially useful for finding quest-specific items. For example, antiseptic can be found in medical areas, which on the map are marked like this. Familiarizing yourself with the legend, map, and these locations is going to make finding everything you need a lot easier. You can recycle items, but did you know that when you recycle them in raid, you get less materials? So if you have room, make sure to return to Speranza, then recycle them unless you need to reduce your weight or plan to stack a massive amount of small resources in raid. In the loadout section, you can equip an augment. These essentially function similar to a backpack, but augments do so much more than just increase your inventory space. They also control what level shield you can equip, how much weight you can carry, how many utility slots and special slots for things like trinkets and gadgets that you have, and even increase the size of your safe pocket. Higher tier augments even have abilities like this. So familiarize yourself with these and find which backpack works best for you. You can change the audio levels of your character's ping voice lines by holding the ping button, then pressing the button that's prompted on the side here. This can be helpful if you need raiders to hear things like "don't shoot" at further distances. You can change your tactical pings to squad only. This is very useful if you play in duos and trios a lot and you do not want other raiders hearing those voice lines, which could give your position away. When playing controller and looting, every shortcut and trick is your best friend. The faster you loot, the higher your survival rate will be. With that said, when you need to move something into your safe pocket on controller, rather than bringing it all the way down, instead press Y or triangle, then select safe pocket. This is the fastest way to secure your most valuable loot, especially if you're looting during combat. We already know ziplines are extremely useful for traversing the map or reaching high places, but did you know that while riding a zipline you can heal? This means that if you need to retreat during combat, you can continue to move away and heal simultaneously. These small actions can make a huge difference, so try not to forget this one. You can activate your flashlight by pressing D-pad right on controller or F on keyboard. This can be very useful for checking if enemy raiders are ratting in dark corners, or even used to blind your opponents during a fight. Most new players don't consider the fact that you can use this during combat, so be sure to remember. At the weapon bench, you can upgrade your weapons. For example, if you upgrade the Rattler 1 to a Rattler 2, it will increase its base magazine size, making it far more effective than before. But be aware, the more you upgrade, the more materials it will cost to do so, in some cases making it not even worth it. For example, the Stitcher, if you're trying to save on resources, is actually better to upgrade only to level 3 than rather to level 4. However, if you have materials to spare, obviously upgrading it further is going to make the weapon better. Your weapons, armor, augment, and even some gadgets have a durability stat. If this stat hits 0, the item will break. When an item is broken, it essentially cannot be used. If that's a weapon, it can no longer be shot. If that's armor, it can no longer protect you. If that's an augment, you can no longer use it. And if it's a gadget, you're no longer able to activate its ability. Make sure to review and repair your gear when at home base before loading into your next raid. Otherwise, these could break on you mid-raid, rendering them useless and getting you sent back to the lobby. By default, the crosshair has a setting enabled that moves your crosshair when terrain is blocking your aim. While useful, you can also disable this by navigating to your settings, accessibility, and turning off move crosshair when line of sight is blocked, as this can also be quite distracting for the majority of players. Wolfpack grenades shoot homing missiles, so the best use is to throw them high into the air above your target so it rains down on them. These are incredibly powerful and can help you take down large arc enemies with just 1 to 2 grenades, especially if it hits all the correct weak points. But keep in mind, they do not target raiders, so don't try to use these in PvP. When looting an enemy raider, be sure to check their weapons for attachments, or else you'll miss out on some really good loot. You can spot if a weapon has any attachments by noticing this symbol on the weapon. Equip it, then take the attachments off, swap them to your own gun, or just keep the gun and all of its attachments entirely. You can visit the practice range to test various weapons on enemy arc and raiders. This can be useful if you're trying to learn how each weapon works and how long it'll take to eliminate a target. For example, you can see here that it takes 3 feral shots to the body to eliminate an enemy raider. This type of knowledge is going to greatly assist you when you're out there on topside. If you invest points into the survival tree and grab the skill called in-round crafting, you are able to craft a small list of recipes on the fly. This can be very useful if you run out of things like meds or grenades, and oftentimes saves your life. It's only a 3-point investment, so I'd advise every raider to pick this one up. There is no friendly fire in arc raiders. However, when you shoot your teammates, it will make a hit marker sound, which you can abuse to jump scare your friends. You can find rocks laying around. If you pick them up, you can throw them at your enemies. It won't kill them, but it will make them angry. If you exceed your weight limit, your raider will become over-encumbered, identified by this icon above your stamina bar. This will slow your movement and reduce your stamina regeneration, which can greatly reduce your chances of survival if you're not careful. So pay close attention to the weight of each item, and take note that weapons are often the thing that weighs the most. A standard combat mechanic in all third-person shooters is called third-person peeking. Use this as often as possible in fights against arc and raiders. Combo this with shoulder swapping to utilize cover as much as possible. Mastering this will give you the edge in all of your engagements on topside. Barren husks are large arc structures that can contain important loot. Once you breach them, step back as they will begin erupting heat, which will damage you. Wait it out before looting, and be aware as it is very loud and may alert nearby arc and, more importantly, nearby raiders. There are various traps and alarms in arc raiders. You can destroy them by shooting them with your weapon or hitting them with your melee, but alternatively, you can leave them for other enemy raiders and use them as a personal alarm. Birds will be scattered around the map, standing in a flock. If you go close or make too much noise, they will fly into the air, giving away your position. However, you can move quietly around them if you'd like not to alert them. Cameras beep if you are in line of sight and close enough. You can shoot or melee to destroy them, but again, keep in mind you could choose to leave these cameras up if you want to be alerted of raiders coming behind you. Metal detectors beep when you pass through them. You can see that they are on by this red light here. You can shoot or melee to destroy them. Cars with their lights on will sound an alarm if you bump into them or get too close. Just like other traps, you can shoot or melee to destroy them. Whirring androids are knocked out humanoid robots with their eyes lit up blue. They will alarm if you get too close, and again, like others, you can shoot or melee to destroy them. Motion sensors are light traps that trigger when you walk past them. To avoid this, make sure to shoot or hit the sensor and keep the hallways dark for cover. However, if you shoot them after they activate, the lights will stay on for a while. Crouching greatly improves your accuracy by shrinking your cone of fire. This mechanic in shooters is called bloom, and the way it works is standing still equals standard bloom, moving equals increased bloom, jumping equals massive bloom, continuous fire equals expanded bloom, and crouching equals reduced bloom. And lastly, ADS reduces your bloom even further. So in order to achieve the tightest aim, you'll want to crouch and ADS. This is extremely useful for long range shots. Using a recovery roll when landing negates damage. But if you fall from too high, this doesn't always work. So if you roll off the ledge first, your falling state doesn't begin until later, allowing you to land a recovery roll from higher places. Keep in mind this requires 2 rolls total, so you may be using a decent bit of stamina for this. Line up your crosshair before swinging corners so your gun is already aimed at head height. Headshots do more damage, so this could be the determining factor on whether you win or lose the majority of your gunfights in ARC Raiders. This is typically referred to as pre-aiming in shooters and is something you need to practice. A wide swing forces enemies to readjust their aim. This can sometimes throw them off, winning you that close but uncomfortable gunfight. Typically, you only want to use this in close quarters. However, there are instances where you could use it during long-range engagements, but typically I don't advise it. You need to maintain cutoff angles, which means you need to position yourself in ways that remove how many angles can see you at once. If you can, you don't want to put yourself in a position that has you open to 4+ angles. Instead, use the nearest cover and environment to position yourself in a way that only allows you to be shot from a limited number of angles and positions. You should tap fire or burst fire to control recoil and bloom to land more shots on long distance targets. This game uses the bloom mechanic for shooting, so holding down full auto at range will have a majority of your shots missing over time. However, using tap fire or burst fire to control the recoil will allow you to land more shots. This isn't the case for every weapon, so you'll need to experiment with each. ADS is great for mid to long range, but HIPFIRE is incredible, especially in a third-person bloom-based shooter. Using it allows you to move faster and smoother while shooting simultaneously. Implementing this more into your combat will improve your skills tenfold, so practice this as often as you can. You can grab zip lines and ladders while falling. These can be very useful shortcuts and in some cases even save you from a lethal fall if timed properly. Similar to zip lines and ladders, you can clamber ledges when falling, negating all forms of fall damage. This can be useful for getting into specific areas or getting down faster without taking any damage at all. You can perform a recovery roll right when landing to negate fall damage. But did you know that instead of pressing roll when landing, you can also press crouch? The difference is small, but the benefit is that when you fall from a height shorter than expected, you will instead slide rather than mistakenly dodge and spend a lot more valuable stamina. You can even increase this window in the skill tree by using the node ready to roll, which makes the timing easier to hit. We all know you can use bushes to hide from raiders, but did you know Embark actually designed the large bushes to hide you from ARC 2? As you can see here, the ARC were recently alerted. Both a WASP and Hornet get inches away from me searching into this bush, but shortly after they de-aggro and leave the area. ARC have 4 major detection levels, which are indicated by the lights emitting from them. White means the enemy is in a patrol state, which has a low threat level. Blue means the enemy is scanning for raiders, which also has a fairly low threat level. You can generally avoid them by keeping enough distance. Yellow and orange, however, is the alerted state, which has a moderate threat level. You may typically need to hide and wait for them to stand down. Red is the attack state, which has the highest threat level. You must either eliminate the enemy or run away fast and far and hide where they cannot follow you. The down state de-aggro's enemy arc. This means that if you are downed at an extraction point, you can still crawl to the button, then crawl inside and hit the escape, as the enemy arc will stop shooting you. This also helps if you get caught and downed by arc, as you can then lose aggro, crawl to safety so that your teammates can have you revived. You can ping in arc raiders by pressing D-pad up on controller or middle click on mouse. This has a ton of uses, such as the ability to mark enemy raiders, notify teammates of loot inside containers, and more. But did you know you can even ping bushes, dark corners, or even smoke grenades to potentially spot enemy raiders, providing a live ping for both you and your teammates? Arc Raiders lets you heal not only yourself, but also your teammates and even enemy raiders. This is best used when a teammate gets heavily damaged and falls back to you to heal. For example, while your teammate is recharging shields, you can bandage them so that they are healing 2 things at once. To do this, go up to a raider and press the left trigger on controller or right click on mouse. Instead of searching your entire stash for equipment, you can instead filter each item quickly by selecting an empty equipment slot on the right. This then filters the items you can equip into that slot. For example, if I select a weapon slot, it will show all available weapons I have in my stash. Or if I select a slot in the quick use, it will bring up all of my meds, grenades, etc. Alternatively, you can also use the filters on the far left of your stash to filter the items you need. To improve your survival rate against enemy raiders, you need to know the distance at which you can be heard when moving around. For crouching, it's roughly 30 meters, running roughly 43 meters, sprinting roughly 50 meters, sliding roughly 60 meters, and falling roughly 80 meters. Keep these in mind if you are trying to sneak around or past enemy raiders. Mind you, the audio cue may differ depending on the weather conditions or explosions happening around you. If possible, you should rotate behind secondary cover before healing, not the first cover you reach. If you heal on the first piece of cover, your opponent may push you or at the very least throw grenades your way. Moving behind secondary cover will increase your chances of survival. Don't heal in predictable spots. Lightning strikes can drop loot. These show up as fossilized lightning, which can be sold for a good price or recycled for valuable crafting materials that are used to craft grenades, which includes the amazing WOLFPACK. Don't chase every kill. If someone escapes behind a ridge or into a building, reset and don't overextend unless you have a plan. If you chase too hard, you'll oftentimes have the fight reversed, ending in your defeat. Play smart and tactical. Arc Raiders has long reload animations. Oftentimes when you hear/see reloads, you need to push during that time to move closer or take out the enemy raider altogether. You can also bait out shots by quickly peeking, then falling behind cover to force a reload and then push. If you see one enemy raider split from their team, it can be a wise choice to collapse on them, creating a 3v1 or 2v1 scenario so that you can quickly eliminate that raider and weaken the enemy team overall. A good way to create an opening in Arc Raiders is to throw grenades at your opponent. You can use things like impacts, fuses, etc. to push them off a corner and break their shields, or even a smoke grenade to cover you while you're advancing forward. Utility is the next level when it comes to combat within Arc Raiders. You need to know that most players move towards loot spawns, high ground, and extraction points. There are always hot spots and cold spots. You will learn these with time, but keep these routes in mind when thinking about where your enemy raiders will be rotating. This will allow you to set up strong ambushes. This also enables you the ability to go against the grain and take routes with less traffic to stay hidden and even flank. Whenever you're outdoors on topside, if you hear a ticking sound like this, you need to follow the sound and look for a red sign that points to a silver box. This is a raider cache, and these can be a decent source of guns, ammo, meds, and even blueprints if you're lucky. So always be listening. Fun fact, your raider's hideout evolves over the course of your adventures, seeing changes like the bed, shelves, weapon case, and more. You can even keep a few trinkets in your stash, and some will appear on the shelves behind you for decoration. This is what we call the Raider Hideout Evolution, which will reset upon expeditions if you choose to embark on them. Learn what gives you the biggest profit per space. To do this in Raid, you can use the value displayed here at the top of your inventory. You can then pick up and drop items to see the value fluctuate. Typically, the highest value items are of higher rarity, but upgraded weapons with attachments are usually your biggest ticket items of all. With more playtime, you'll know exactly what to take and leave behind to make the most money in Raid. If you finish a fight, you need to heal your health and shields before looting. Don't overloot when weak, especially in Arc Raiders, because when you knock enemies, a flare shoots into the sky, signaling everyone on the map. This is a common mistake I see so many new players make because they get blinded by the beautiful loot in front of them. But remember, none of that loot matters if you're eliminated and lose it all. So heal first, loot second. An important tactic in shooters you'll often hear is to clear corners. But this becomes significantly more important and effective in a third-person shooter, as turning your camera at a corner allows your camera to wrap around, giving you full view of what's nearby. Use this constantly to avoid campers and give you the advantage in your fights. Closing doors behind you will increase your survival rate in Arc Raiders. By doing so, you give yourself a loud audio cue to warn you of incoming raiders. The times that you'd want to leave it open though are when you're fleeing quickly, traveling around the map, or holding a corner waiting for an enemy. But if you plan to stay in the area for a mission or to loot, then make sure to close the doors behind you. Sometimes it can be difficult to deal with sus players when playing solo. Never let them keep their guns out. Good players will stow their weapons, but ones that can't be trusted will not. This is a strong sign as to whether a player in solos is one that can be trusted or one that will shoot you in the back when the time is right. Keep your eyes peeled, not everyone is trustworthy on topside. When moving items like field crates, fuel cells, etc., you can actually move faster if you sprint backwards rather than forwards. At least, that's the way it looks. But with recent testing, I found that this is in fact not true. For whatever reason, the backwards animation looks significantly faster than when moving forwards, but as you can see here, they actually move at the same speed. Once you hit level 15 for the first time, you will unlock Trials. Trials is a ranking system in which raiders compete for points on a leaderboard to raise their Trials rank. Raiders are given 5 trial challenges every week, which can be viewed in the Trials menu. When completing an action listed in a challenge, raiders will earn points towards that challenge. Raiders can gain double the challenge points adventuring into maps with major map conditions. These include things like night raids, electromagnetic storm, hidden bunker, locked gate, cold snap, and more. Upon extraction, the raiders' points for each challenge are tallied. Only a raider's best score in each challenge is kept. Reaching certain point thresholds grants you the various rewards, with a maximum of 3 rewards per trials. When selecting a map, you will sometimes notice a symbol to the right of each map name. Maps have special modified variants that will cycle on a timely basis for each map. Playing these conditions could entail having more loot, more aggressive arc enemies, or different weather conditions. You will also see major conditions under each map. These include things like night raid, electromagnetic storm, cold snap, locked gate, hidden bunker, and I'm sure even more in the future. These are extremely helpful when completing trials as it doubles the points earned. Cold snap, night raids, and electromagnetic storm open up for each map at specific time intervals and have increased loot. When going into a night raid, be careful as there are more arc enemies, raider hatches are closed, and you will also have limited extraction points. Cold snap doesn't have any of those downsides, but instead has a blizzard that will freeze your raider, causing damage over time. Electromagnetic storms, however, are different and have lightning strikes that strike at random intervals. Be careful when loading into these, but also be aware that the loot is increased, so more risk equals more reward. When exposed to the snowstorm effect in Arc Raiders Cold Snap event, it takes roughly 1 to 2 minutes to begin taking damage from the Cold Snap debuff. Once you enter cover in Arc Raiders, while under the effect of the Cold Snap debuff, you will immediately stop taking damage. If not, it means you've not taken enough appropriate cover, so move around or to a different location. Once you enter cover while under the effect of the Cold Snap debuff in Arc Raiders, it takes roughly 20 to 30 seconds when in cover to remove the Cold Snap debuff and completely reset. You can reset the Cold Snap debuff in Arc Raiders with fire. For example, the flamethrower on teammates will completely remove the Cold Snap debuff if you burn them long enough. However, if you burn them with a light spray, it will only stop it for a brief moment. Do not waste keys. Keys can be extremely valuable in ARC raiders, but did you know that the best time to use them is during special events such as night raids, cold snap, or electromagnetic storm? The reason is simple. These modes increase the value of loot, so unlocking those rare rooms during such times increase the maximum value out of each container. But be careful that due to this, there are far more hostile raiders during these events, so be safe out there. Synthesized fuel is more than just a recyclable material. You can throw this in raid, then shoot it for a huge and powerful explosion. This can be especially useful against raiders and even ARC, so if you find some laying around, feel free to throw it and give it a shot. In ARC raiders, you always lose health and shields at the same time. Shields only mitigate the damage taken to your health rather than prevent the damage. So if you are low, make sure to heal your health first and your shields after to avoid death. The inspect options for guns makes it very easy to insert mods into your weapon without the need to equip it. You can do this on controller by pressing Y or triangle, then selecting inspect, or right click on mouse and keyboard and then select inspect. This gives you a full view of the weapon and all of its available mods. When you do various things in ARC raiders, you'll gain experience, and with enough, you'll level up with the max level being 75. Once you level up, you'll gain a skill point, which you can invest into the skill tree. But be aware, the only way to reset the skill tree is through the expedition feature, which requires you to reset everything, or costing you 2,000 points per skill. It is worth mentioning that in ARC raiders, you actually earn enough skill points for you to fully reach the end of at least 2 skill trees. This is if you invest exactly 37 points into each, which will leave you with 1 spare point to put anywhere if you've never done the expedition. Preparing for the expedition happens in 5 stages, each requiring specific resources or items. You'll have 60 days to gather resources and complete the project. Once the build and load stages are finished, a 7-day window opens for your raider to depart, passing their earned rewards onto your next raider. Now, it is important to note that you can earn extra skill points. However, you need to pay close attention as it may cost you a significant amount of coins to do so. Completing an expedition gives your raider new lasting advantages. These include increased XP gain, extra scrappy materials, increased weapon repairs, and more stash space. You can also earn those bonus skill points based on the total value of coins and stash value when the expedition ends. The raider deck system is most similar to a battle pass. You'll have different raider decks with multiple pages, each requiring you to unlock items via the cred currency marked in blue. This currency is obtained by completing random quests under the decks section. Some raider decks are free and some paid. They can contain cosmetic and other rewards. Keep in mind, you can actually use those other rewards as a way to make some quick cash. So if you're looking for money to do things like upgrade your expansion, you can grab those inside of a raider deck and then sell them for quick coins. You can wall leap a short distance when holding onto a ledge. There's even a skill in the mobility tree that increases this called off the wall. You can use this to maneuver around places even better while you're topside. So consider investing in this if this is the type of movement you'd like to utilize. You can easily find ARC surveyors by climbing to a high location and then looking into the sky for a thin blue beam. You'll need to hunt these down for a quest, workbench upgrade parts, and to farm some blueprints. You can recycle or sell items in bulk. To do this on keyboard, you want to hold Control and select multiple items, or on controller by holding left trigger and selecting multiple items. Afterwards, you can choose to sell or recycle, and keep in mind this will save you tons of time in stash and inventory management. Knowing spawn points will give you a massive advantage in extraction shooters. It will help increase your survival rate if you want to avoid players, and help increase your elimination rate if you want to hunt players. This is common knowledge in other extraction games, so use sites like metaforge.app to familiar yourself with the spawn points in ARC raiders. If you perform a dodge roll while sprinting, you will do a stronger roll called sprint dodge roll. This will perform a faster and further dodge roll than normal, but also consumes nearly double the amount of stamina. Keep in mind you only need to sprint for 1 second to get the sprint dodge roll, so pressing forward and sprint then immediately after pressing dodge gives you an instant sprint dodge roll. You can recycle a weapon to extract the ammo out of its magazine. This is most useful when you are mid-raid and you are searching for ammo but find weapons of the same ammo type instead. You simply select the weapon, salvage, and you'll receive metal parts and ammo and any attachments that were on the weapon. Alternatively, if you'd like to keep the weapon, you can also select the unload option to extract the ammo. It might be a small amount, but could be the difference in your fights. Rather than climb down a ladder or rappel down a zipline in Arc Raiders, you can instead start free falling first and then grab the ladder or zipline to traverse downwards significantly faster. This can be especially useful for escaping or chasing your enemies. Once the extraction timer reaches a certain point during a raid, a nuke lands and every raider on topside is eliminated. However, if any raider hits the extraction button before the timer reaches 0, the raid's time will be extended, giving you and your team just enough time to make it out alive. After you eliminate an Arc, you can always find its lootable body parts by looking for the dark smoke that emits from them. Parts that emit dark smoke have loot inside. This helps when you eliminate an Arc in an area with a lot of bushes and struggle to find its body quickly. Keeping your backpack organized can help you in combat. Let me explain. If you keep ammo and weapons on the far left and meds, grenades, utility on the far right side, it makes switching in and out weapons and utility much easier as the items are closer to their respective equipment slots. This leaves your generalized loot going down the middle columns. However, this is preference, so use what works best for you. Rather than place a trap on the ground in a doorway where a player can easily shoot it, or on top of a door frame where you can no longer retrieve it, instead place traps in a way where a player cannot reach it so that they have to trigger it to pass through. For simple traps, you can place them on the side of a door frame, but for laser traps, you'll need to get a bit more creative. Be careful because you can trigger your own traps. You can hide your HUD on PC by pressing F10. This can be useful for getting really cool cinematic screenshots in Arc Raiders, and if you're a content creator, it can even help with getting photos for things like thumbnails. Or, as a third option, you can even use it to play the game in a much more hardcore way where you have no HUD assisting you along the way. We all know that Scrappy provides materials by now, but did you know that if you go on a losing streak, Scrappy will provide you with more materials than normal to help you come back up? He's always out there watching your back and helping you when needed. When you're in raid, you can sometimes even hear him if you listen closely. If you breach a door from the center, you can only turn your camera so much. But if you breach from the sides of a door, you can turn your camera much further, allowing you to see behind you. This trick might seem small, but it will save your life 10 times over. You can use your SNAPHOOK to pull carryables like field crates, fuel cells, etc. While this is quite niche, if you happen to have a SNAPHOOK on you, you can really use this thing to speed up the process of unlocking rooms or opening crates at field depots. Skins have pros and cons in Arc Raiders, the most obvious being that camel colored skins help you blend into bushes, or how darker skins help you hide in the shadows. But some skins have major cons. For example, any of the backpacks with light attachments really pop out in the dark or during night raids. I spotted several raiders due to this and even warned them that had I been a hostile raider, their backpack had given them away and I could have eliminated them. It would be cool if Embark gave us a way to turn off the lights on these skins. You can visually see what tier shields an enemy raider is wearing. Green tier shows 1 shield, blue shows 2, and purple shows 3. This can be very useful when observing other raiders that you may have teamed up with, but you are not sure if they have ill intentions or not. You can cancel a slide into a sprint dodge roll. This can be very helpful for quick peeking corners or even peek shots. To do this, you need to sprint, then enter a slide. While sliding, press sprint plus dodge roll in any direction. At first, this will seem difficult, but with practice, it will feel like second nature, giving you huge advantages in PvP combat. The benefits that shield provided in Arc Raiders is not always straightforward. You know by now that they provide damage reduction rather than overshield, but you may not have noticed that they can also reduce your movement speed. So much so that on purple rarity shields, oftentimes it's not worth running them over blue shields unless you plan to play on smaller close quarter maps like Stella Montes. The movement speed reduction makes you an easy target, so be aware of the pros and cons of each shield before heading topside. You can shield swap in arc raiders to heal more effectively. The main benefit here versus using a shield recharger is that you can move and shoot while your shield is recharging at the same time. This is a niche trick that I only tend to use if I loot a random shield while on topside, but even so, it has saved my butt a few times. It's obvious to most that you can use arc to your advantage in a fight. But what might seem less obvious is using arc as a means to understand where players are on the map. For example, if you see any arc's lights turn red far in the distance, you know that there's raiders in that direction. However, if you see or hear an arc attack or explode, you can be aware that there are raiders nearby. Don't ignore these visual or sound cues, as they will save your life. There's a cool trick in arc raiders that allows you to get down Space Tower very quickly. You'll want to line up on this edge and look at this spot. Jump forward and prepare to grab a zip when falling. If you've done it correctly, you'll grab the zipline and survive the fall. Now, this is tricky, so I'd advise taking a free kit into Spaceport and practicing this several times over. While risky, it's very useful, especially if you think a team is camping the ziplines below and you need to get out. You need Sentinel cores and Surveyor vaults for your workstation upgrades. Normally you'd need to take down a Sentinel turret or Arc Surveyor, which can be especially annoying if another raider gets to it first. So what you can instead do is farm these. These are called Arc Couriers, and they drop a wide range of materials that you need without having to hunt down Arc. You can even wait for an electromagnetic storm event where a ton of these will spawn everywhere and be easily noticed by smoke emitting from them. You need ROCKTEER drivers for your workstation upgrades, but ROCKTEERs are an absolute pain in the butt. Normally you'd need to take down a ROCKTEER, which can be especially difficult if you're new or lower level. So instead, what you can do is farm these. These are called ROCKTEER husks, and they drop the materials you need without having to fight that big bad ROCKTEER. Even better, you can farm these during a HUSK event, which greatly increases your chances of getting those ROCKTEER drivers. If you are in desperate need for heals, you can actually use fabric if you are out of bandages and don't have the in-round crafting skill. The heals provided are extremely small, but it can still save you or another raider's life. Deployable barricades are very useful pieces of on-the-fly cover. They can also be picked back up for infinite uses. However, not all gadgets work this way, such as zip lines, so be precise and intentional when using other gadgets. Pro tip, you can use these barricade kits to block several doorways, giving you and your team plenty of time to heal and loot after an intense fight. And since these are reusable, you really only need to bring one with you. Weapon swapping in arc raiders can be quite so slow that sometimes you get eliminated. To help against this, you can press the weapon swap, then dodge roll right after. Once the roll is complete, you'll pull out your new weapon. This keeps you in movement while swapping, making you far less vulnerable in a fight. This may take some practice, so try it out beforehand. If you play on controller, you should switch your interact/reload behavior to prioritize reload or hold to reload. This ensures that when you are near an interactable object and you need to reload, you won't accidentally loot or press a door when you need to reload during combat. This is a lifesaver for controller players, and you absolutely need to change it now. If you are in trios and you use 2 defibrillators simultaneously on a down teammate, it will revive them to full health. This does require good coordination and timing, but it's very powerful. When an enemy raider downs your teammate, you need to take action and immediately eliminate the attacker to keep the fight even. This is called trading and is a fundamental skill in team-based shooters. Stay close enough to support each other so every knock becomes a 1-for-1 trade instead of a team wipe. If you can, make sure to rotate around and into cover rather than over it, especially in PvP. This is because the vaulting animation is slow and keeps you in place, making you an easy target. Obviously, there are scenarios where vaulting is the right choice, so always be flexible to your situation, but keep this tactic in the back of your mind. Less of a tip and more of a random fun fact, but the order in which you craft your workbenches inside your workshop is the order they'll appear in your area, and even the order they are displayed at in your UI at the bottom. Hopefully in the future, Embark gives us a way to reorganize these, because as it currently stands, the only way to do so is to go on an expedition. When you are down but not out, you can use your compass at the top of your screen to crawl to an open extraction point. If you do not see the extraction icon, that means that it has been closed and you'll need to find another. This is especially useful when you have the Looting Mark III Survivor backpack, which allows you to crawl indefinitely as long as no other raider finishes you. You can use meds to stabilize downed raiders, both friendly and enemy. This will buy them time in the downed state before being fully eliminated. This can be especially useful for saving random players in solos by stabilizing them over to an extraction point to help them escape. The direction you go on a zipline is based on the direction your raider is looking when you grab the zipline. With that said, you can even reverse the direction you are traveling on the zipline mid-rappel by jumping off of the zip, then quickly re-grabbing and looking in the direction you want to go. You can do this both horizontally and vertically. While grenades on the surface are very easy to understand how to use, those that are new or unfamiliar with third-person shooters may not know that grenades are especially a direct counter to holding corners. As seen here, you can use light impact grenades or any grenade of your choice to punish players holding corners, allowing you to crack their shields and give you the opportunity to push. With that said, you should always be carrying grenades if you can. Some weapons and grenades are specifically designed for defeating ARC. You'll know this as these weapons do not target raiders at all, as their sole purpose is to take down our ARC enemies. These include things like the HULLCRACKER, WOLFPACK grenade, and many more. If you plan to take down the largest ARC in the game, these are your go-to options for making the job a lot easier. If you're having difficulty hearing key audio cues like footsteps, or if perhaps the loud sounds like explosions are painful to your ears, then try out the audio setting called Night Mode. This mode reduces the dynamic range, making it so that loud sounds become quieter and quiet sounds become louder. Hearing, however, is subjective, so it's not for everyone. You'll need to try it and see what works best for you. You can set up a custom crosshair by navigating to the settings, accessibility, then scrolling down to the crosshair section. You can change the shape, size, color, and more. Regarding crosshair color, it is best advised to pick a color that contrasts against the common in-game environment colors such as grays, greens, browns, and blues. A popular competitive option is cyan, but experiment and find what's right for you and your eyes. You can use interactive maps from sites like Metaforge, MapGenie, etc. to create loot routes for things such as weapon crates, fruit baskets, security lockers, and more. You can also use these maps to help you in questing when searching for specific items, or even just to familiarize yourself with everything on the map. These sites are often free and available to everyone, so check them out as they are really helpful. The lure grenade is more useful than it seems. It draws the attention of nearby ARC, but it also sticks to surfaces and ARC, meaning that you can stick this to an ARC enemy to make other ARC attack it. Spoiler, there's even an achievement for this. When fighting ARC and especially other raiders, unless you are far away, you should be moving constantly while shooting. Remember that you can shoot while running, jumping, sliding, and even when riding ziplines. Combining movement plus aiming is going to be the difference in a lot of your PvP interactions. You should always avoid sprinting across an open area. If possible, move from cover to cover, such as from tree to a rock to a building. But if you need to cross out in the open, my advice is to always have a smoke grenade handy, just in case you get targeted by ARC or enemy raiders. ARC Raiders provides players with the ability to trade items, which can be very useful for helping each other get quest items, upgrade materials, or even blueprints you or a friend is missing. The best way to do this is to load in with the item in each other's safe pockets, drop the item for each other, then immediately place the newly acquired item back in your safe pocket. Keep in mind that it is against Embark TOS to trade in-game items for real money or anything outside of the game, and could result in a ban, so trade responsibly. You need to use walls and corners like shields. For example, you need to use corners and walls to reset fights, heal, reload, or swap items. This is a core combat concept in all shooters, but when combined with third-person peeking in ARC Raiders, it is something you should always be aware of and position yourself in such a way. You need to be making yourself hard to target. Jump, strafe, crouch, slide, and dodge roll while fighting. Add movement variation to your combat in order to make yourself a much harder target to hit. If you just stand there or move slowly, more experienced players are going to win and take all of your loot. This will take practice, but implementing just one of these each day will net you huge improvements. You need to treat your camera as a sensor. You should be constantly swinging your camera back and forth while running to be aware of your surroundings and keep yourself protected. You never know who's watching or tailing you if you only look forward while traversing the map. You need to be planning your raids around map events. For example, if you need fruit to level your rooster, use sites like metaforge.app to see when and where the next Lush Bloom or Cold Snap event is. This is also really helpful when you need less common events like Hidden Bunker and you don't want to miss it and wait another day. You can deploy utility while sliding. This includes items like mines, traps, and even the barricade kit. This can be very useful when you're caught out in the open and need instant cover. Just make sure you're deploying it off to the side of your raider, otherwise it'll cancel out the placement. This does take a little bit of practice, so make sure to go to the practice range and try it out there first. When using a snap hook, you want to hold the direction you'd like to move when using it. For example, if you want to move left, hold left and then grapple. However, if you want to go up, hold jump when grappling. This should feel pretty intuitive, but being that the snap hooks are quite rare, I'd practice with it a bit first. Be careful when using a shield recharger. If you are shot during its recharge, it will be canceled and wasted, so make sure to always take cover while recharging if enemies are nearby. A really cool trick in Arc Raiders is that you can put weapon attachments on your guns to reduce stash space. This will help clean up things, allowing you to hold a lot more loot and attachments simultaneously. It's a small tip that'll save you a lot of space. Augments only lose durability when you are completely eliminated. This means that if you go into a raid with an augment that is, for example, say 10 out of 100 durability, it will never break in raid, as the only time it would lose durability is if you are eliminated, which at that point it is gone anyway. Technically, if you never fail a raid, you'll always have that augment. However, if you loot a 0 out of 100 durability augment off of another raider, then when you return to base, you'll want to repair it one time. To keep your snap hook safe, you can take things to the next level by using your grapple hook, waiting for the latch sound, and once you hear that, you can open your inventory and drag it into your safe pocket. Afterwards, you can close your inventory before landing and you safely used your grapple hook. This is a small but high level gameplay trick that only a few will use, but can make the difference. You can easily defeat a WASP by destroying 2 of its 4 thrusters. Alternatively, since they are unarmored, you can also just damage its body, but it will require a bit more ammo. Here is the loot that the WASP drops. You can easily defeat a Hornet by destroying 2 of its 4 thrusters, but keep in mind that the Hornet, unlike the WASP, has its front thrusters protected by armor. So ideally, you want to shoot out the back 2 thrusters. However, you can also break off a front armor plate, then take out a front thruster and then a back thruster. Here's the loot that the Hornet drops. You can easily defeat a Snitch by shooting out 2 of its 3 thrusters. However, if you're not quick enough, the Snitch will call in reinforcements and fly away. Here's the loot the Snitch drops. You can easily defeat a Tick by shooting it with a few bullets. Now, while they may seem harmless, if you leave them alive, they will hunt you down, latch onto you, rendering you useless and dealing damage. If this happens in combination with another arc, it could be your end, so make sure to deal with these when you see them. Here's the loot the Tick drops. You can easily defeat a Pop by shooting it with only a few bullets. But what most do not know is that it will not damage you at all as long as you eliminate it before it explodes, meaning that even if it gets right next to you, you'll be fine as long as you do so before it explodes. And here's the loot the Pop drops. You can easily defeat a Fireball by letting it approach you and opening its core. Once its core is exposed, a couple bullets will destroy it. Alternatively, if you have a heavy weapon, you can often just destroy it in one shot. Here's the loot the Fireball drops. You can easily defeat a Surveyor by damaging it while its core is exposed, and then chasing it down while dealing damage. Alternatively, you can use grenades to help you get the job done much faster. Here's the loot the Surveyor typically drops. But keep in mind the Surveyor is special and can sometimes drop blueprints. You can easily defeat a turret by shooting it with a few bullets, as it is completely unarmored, similar to a WASP. While these are easy to destroy, if you leave them be, they can absolutely destroy your shields and even be your end. So make sure to deal with them quickly. Here's the loot the turret drops. You can easily defeat a sentinel by shooting its yellow tank in the middle of its body. This will do significantly more damage, helping eliminate the sentinel much faster. Here's the loot the sentinel drops. You can easily defeat a shredder by using cover to bait out its attacks and then repeatedly shooting it in its thrusters. Mind you, overall they are very tanky, so be careful. Here's the loot the shredder drops. You can easily defeat a bastion by damaging its rear weak spots and joints. Make sure to use a wall as cover to block its machine gun, otherwise you'll be eliminated very quickly. Alternatively, you can use the most effective weapons and utility, such as things like the HULLCRACKER, WOLFPACK, Deadline Mine, and more. Here's the loot the bastion drops. You can easily defeat a bombardier by damaging its rear weak spot and joints. Make sure you use a building as cover to block its grenade launcher, otherwise you'll be eliminated very quickly. Alternatively, you can use the most effective weapons and utilities, such as things like the HULLCRACKER, WOLFPACK, Deadline Mine, and more. Here's the loot the bombardier drops. You can easily defeat a leaper by damaging its center core. After you break its plates, the white core will be exposed, allowing you to do a lot more damage. Just be sure to be near some cover so that it can't easily reach you. Alternatively, you can use the most effective weapons and utilities, such as things like the HULLCRACKER, WOLFPACK, Deadline Mine, and more. Here's the loot the leaper drops. You can easily defeat a ROCKTEER by destroying 2 of its 4 thrusters. However, you need good cover, as fighting this in the open will lead to your immediate demise. Just be sure to be near some cover so that it can't easily reach you. Alternatively, you can use the most effective weapons and utilities, such as things like the HULLCRACKER, WOLFPACK, Deadline Mine, and more. In my personal experience, I strongly advise using the WOLFPACK a majority of the time when dealing with these. Here is the loot the ROCKTEER drops. I hope these tips and tricks help you become a pro raider. Now go out there and destroy those ARC.